World Cup. Oh, Canada. Astros, Rangers. Rangers sweep the Blue Jays. They're in first place. Astros had a 5-2 road trip. They take 3 out of 4 this weekend in Detroit. 2 come from behind fashion. And the Astros are now a game back of the Rangers in the West, half a game out in the wild card. It's going to be a long and wild summer. MLB. You could text about everything, anything. Aggies pick up another 5-star, and it's a wide receiver. And he's just a playmaking freak machine. So you could text. I know something's going on. 979-693-1150. We'll open up the Maroon and White notebook. It begins with A&M now has a track and field head coach, Leroy Burrell. They hired him from Auburn. He takes over. You know, following a legend is hard and difficult. And when we're talking A&M track and field, you're not just following a legend. You're following the greatest track and field head coach of all time, arguably. For Burrell, 4 top 4 finishes in the last 3 years at Auburn. He is the next head coach. I wish I had more for you, but the news broke yesterday. I still don't have a press release on this. I mean, the more details part. But track and field, they have their next head coach, Leroy Burrell from Auburn. Maroon and White notebook. I mentioned the 5-star wide receiver, Eric McFarland III. He's from IMG Academy in Florida. A&M beats out Georgia and Florida to get the 5-star wide receiver. 5'8", and here's what makes me laugh. 180, 177. Seen various weight reporting. He is this is ESPN recruiting. So, you know, the rankings and all that vary. But when you take a look at them, they all paint the same picture. 5-star wide receiver out of IMG. Number 3 wide receiver, number 17 overall recruit in the cycle. He made the announcement yesterday, live ceremony he held on CBS Sports on Sunday. A&M this cycle is dominating the state of Florida. I think they got 5 of the top 7 kids out of Florida, something along those lines. For A&M, they have the number 1 class, but for ESPN recruiting, and I just mentioned this last week, they were on pace to tie Alabama for the most 5-stars ever. Well, now they're going to set the all-time record. For ESPN recruiting, this is the 6th 5-star commit. ESPN recruiting is the most elite when it comes to handing out 5 stars. And A&M, if these kids all make it home on signing day, will have the record for the most 5 stars in a class, breaking Alabama's former record. You got McFarland III, 5-star wide receiver. O tackles, Kendi Brown, Mark Matthew. Defenders, Raylan Henry, Zyron Forstall, and Kamari Dorsey. All in the ESPN 5-star category. And again, it will set the all-time record for most 5 stars in a class, breaking Alabama's 2014 class. And A&M's 2022 is tied with that Bama class. That is the level. For McFarland III, reclassified into this 2027 cycle, he is a wide receiver who is a playmaker. There's a scouting report on him that I wanted to share with you because there's nowhere I can find anyone that has anything to say hesitant about him. What immediately jumps off the tape with McFarland is the explosiveness. He's an instant accelerator who can erase angles in the open field and turn routine touches into chunk plays. His shot area quickness and sudden change of direction ability makes him incredibly dangerous after the catch. His verified track speed only amplifies the problem for opposing defenses. That scouting report was from Cade Droffin. I like to give credit where it's due. ESPN, I mentioned, had him as the number 3 wide receiver, number 17 recruit. Rivals had him as the number 7 prospect in the state of Florida, number 10 wide receiver, number 66 overall, 5-star also. Undeniable. Mike Elko did it again. Billy Lucci goes on Twitter, and normally one of the things about internet communications, whether it's a message board or it's a tweet or whatever, right, is that you can't get the energy behind words. Billy Lucci's tweet radiated. You could tell the pure excitement over, well, not just this commit, but the totality of what it all means. Billy Lucci's tweet. That's 7, all caps, 5-star pledges for Elko and the Aggies in 2027. Like I said, ESPN Recruiting Snobbier, they have a total of 6. If you do take a look at the services, yes, that's 7 5-star pledges for Elko and the Aggies in 2027. Billy makes a great point. Evenly spread out with 2 in the O-line. Now you have the 1 wide receiver, 1 DN, 1 safety, 1 linebacker, 1 cornerback. So if you have 7, 3 on the offensive side, definitely key being in the O-line, and 4 on the D side. And if we go back to the Jimbo era, which, has anyone ever noticed, I don't like to go back. I'll talk and reminisce, but it's hard, never be stuck. One of the Jimbo problems is, you notice he never addressed in his entire time there certain units. It was never evenly. Never addressed certain units. And the end of Billy's tweet. And that list doesn't include 4 or 5 others currently ranked inside the national top 60 overall. A&M is currently on fire. And you could just, again, it's hard through tweets, X's, both. Like, you can't get irony generally. Always a problem. Smart aleckness sometimes doesn't translate. But you could tell Billy was electric. Feeling it. And if you're an Aggie, you should. I got my first text message of the week from the Texas Mobile and Lube Express inbox. How is Elko doing this? How is a non-flashy coach in today's world doing this? I love it. Just show me the results. Maybe just roll the ball out like Lewis did. How is he doing it? Money. A&M has probably the 2nd or 3rd most expensive roster. That's not the only way, but money. A&M has the money to do it. So they're allowed to. All these recruits that are 5 stars have the same zip code offers from their final list. Unless you come along like Texas Tech and you overpay because of the Lubbock tax, and that's how Texas Tech gets a lot of their players. So McFarland's final list, A&M, Georgia, Florida, I'm sure they all were plus or minus much money, plus or minus in the dollar signs. That's not what decided where McFarland was going. They all offered enough. That wasn't a choice for McFarland. All 3 were the same essentially. You wouldn't have got to be on his final 3 unless the bid was high enough. But A&M gets to be with Georgia, where they used to not be with Florida, because now A&M can place the proper bid. Then it does come down to, you got Holman Wiggins. He's the number 1 ranked wide receivers coach in the SEC, thus the country. And obviously, and it goes back to Bama. So obviously he knows how to talk to wide receivers, sell wide receivers. And if you're going to be at Alabama, that means you're one of the top recruiters in the country. So to me, I don't think it's a mystery. And Elko, he has an eye for coaches. He lets them do his thing. I would think, that's the way I see it on a very basic level. That's how I think he's doing. And then on the defensive side, how's he getting these 5-star defenders? Because he's a defensive players coach. He speaks defense. You see the results of the players getting drafted already under him. Like, again, starts with the money. If you don't got the money, you don't get an invite to the table. And A&M's roster, everything I've seen, okay, Lou, it's not 2. It's a top 5 payroll roster in the country. So, and having money should never have been in doubt for Texas A&M. The commitment had always been there once A&M joined the SEC financially, which is part of the frustration of why A&M football, why has it struggled? Why has it never gotten over the hump? So that's the how is he doing this? He can handle the D side. It looks like he, and you got a Holman Wiggins. I'll just, to McFarland. Adam Cushing is a beast, a god. That's my semi-amateur kind of outlook, insight into that. 979-693-1150. If you take a look at the wide receiver class, and for me, until you have the top, the rest of it can be nice and good, but you need to have, I don't want to say it's always the 5-star, but you got to have the top or the rest is lacking. It's like a pitching staff, right? If you don't have an ace, a number one pitcher, everybody else is kind of out of sync. So now with McFarland, you have 3 top 300 receivers. You have the 4-star Jaden Upshaw. And on Friday, they picked up Damani Warren, who had Oregon and Michigan offers. That was the final list. So now you take it that group, and that is a scary recruiting cycle at wide receiver now that you have the 5-star at the top. It was already nice and good. Now it's scary. Just as a group, that wide receiving, again, I already said it, the 3 of them. Yeah, magical things are happening. Because we already knew that Elko could portal, and now you're seeing this for just 6, 7, 5-stars. And again, being really strong in the line of scrimmage. And the one thing I look at the defensive side, and it makes me chuckle, because it's football 101, each level of the field. D-end, linebacker, cornerback, safety, each gets its 5-star. And you kind of want to do that every cycle, which I know that's kind of being greedy, and I won't argue with that. I got to take a break. You got any questions, comments, opinions, thoughts you want to share? You want to tell me how Elko's doing it? Feel free. 979-693-1150. 979-693-1150. This is the Louis Bellina Show. We're just beginning. Presented by CC Electric on the Zone.
The Money Machine Back to School begins July 27th. Are you ready? Your chance to win $5K from the Zone and the Louis Bellina Show.
Let's stay Maroon and White notebook. Aggie Baseball got another pitcher Friday, was it? I wasn't here Friday, so maybe it was Thursday, and I just rounded up by a day. But a lefty from Oklahoma, a junior, Trent Collier, 3.80, 28 strikeouts, pitched twice in the College World Series for Oklahoma. Well, no, the NCAA tournament run for OU. He was a sophomore this past year. Fan 28 batters and 23 2/3, 3.80, 1.44 whip on the season. And he's a Texas kid coming back to his home state. And it was Thursday, I think Friday actually. But man, I don't know how your world works. But when I take the 3-day weekends, last week feels like a month ago. It was a good party and all, but I'm just telling you, it feels like 700 million years ago. Thursday, Friday, hell, Tuesday feels like Friday of last week. I couldn't tell you the difference. 1 week that lasted 1 day. It's a blur. And no, that's not an alcohol statement being made. It just feels like a long time ago each Monday. So the Aggies have now picked up Johnny Nunez from Wichita State, 6-2 at the 2.56. The right-hander from UNLV, Chase Evangelista, 4-1, 19 appearances. He has the worst ERA, but he's got that insane strikeout rate I was looking for. They got the right-hander from Texas State, Wade Cooper, 7-3, 4.73 ERA, 73 strikeouts. The righty from Houston, Caleb Kimball, good strikeout rate, awful walk to strikeout rate. The lefty from South Carolina, Logan Prisco, 29 appearances, 3, 4, 5, and then another lefty, so 2 lefties, Trent Collier from Oklahoma. And I keep saying their stats, different teams, different roles. Almost all of them are limited number of appearances. Almost all of them. Small data size, small sample sizes. What's going to be their role for A&M? Who are the Aggies do and do not get back? Who's going pro? I'm just talking pitchers. Fresh corn. I know everyone's told me, the thought is he's going pro. If he doesn't, everything changes. Every single thing changes. If he does go pro, it all shifts again. You know what I love about this? It's a ton of arms. It's major conference experience arms. It's guys who've been in big time programs, SEC programs. I like the approach. Okay? I like the fact that it looks like they have given themselves option. And here you go. And I like the fact they have a new pitching coach. That's all I needed. I said it at the time. Lou's not being a smart aleck about this. I was talking with Bryce on a Friday. Just making any change, I think the pitching staff was guaranteed to get better. The recruiting was wrong. The development was non-existent. And the in-game pitching decisions was atrocious. The pitching staff automatically got better with a pitching coach change. And you know what? Everything we've heard about Enright, it was a great hire. Name the last time we saw non-football hires and anyone said, we're doomed. That you had people come on the radio and say, yeah, that's the worst hire y'all could have made. Never. That's fine. But you know that no matter what, he'll be an upgrade over what A&M had. And A&M did not need a lot. I'm excited to see what Enright will do. I'm excited to see what he can bring. There's going to be talent on this roster that just didn't work for Kelly. Like there's players currently here that magically will probably be transformed with a pitching coach change. You didn't have to go out and sign more because these guys will now be able to flourish and succeed with a new pitching coach. But they sure brought themselves a ton of options. If not one of these guys has a fastball at all, I will cry into my hot dog, nachos, and beers. Some of these guys need to be able to come in and just wipe out the side. If it's bases loaded, 2 outs, one of these guys needs to be able to strike someone out. If not, 3 of them need to be able to strike someone out. So, I don't know. I find myself, there's a bottom line to the storyline, highly, extremely optimistic about Aggie Baseball 27 and the future. Enright, Kane, plus high levels of activity. You could tell they just didn't sit back and go, well, you know what the players we have coming back, we feel really positive about what we did. They got a lot of pitchers. Offensively, no, they haven't done enough yet. With what they lost, that part, I don't, but pitching was so a concern. So again, smoke is cleared. Where am I at? Highly optimistic, feeling extremely positive about 27 and beyond. When I look at Enright, Kane, plus the pitching move, they need more offense. Man, they need a lot more offense when you look at what they lost. One more. We're in the Maroon and White notebook here on the Louie Bellina Show. We had the announcement of the Aggies. It used to be the Enron Classic, College Classic. Now it's the Bruce Bolt College Classic. We knew the teams participating. I think it was a little bit later I actually got the schedule. Aggie Baseball 27. On Friday night, when they play in the Bruce Bolt College Classic, they play Louisville, and that's the big one. 7:05. Then on the Saturday, 7:05, Louisiana. And then on Sunday, March 7th at 6:05, host Houston, the Cougars. And just find myself disappointed. Normally, these tournaments are the only time the Aggies play anyone in the non-conference. Because they play a bunch of School of the Blinds, and the tournament forces them to play someone real. Louisville's real. But then Louisiana and Houston's like playing 2 midweek games. And, that's disappointing. Because the tournaments are supposed to be challenging, maybe too challenging, but it's the only weekend they challenge themselves in the non-conference. So I see Louisiana and Houston. I'm like, why are they playing 2 midweek games in the tournament? That's all. They're not playing UConn. They're not playing Utah, the other teams there. But Louisiana and Houston are teams they play in the midweek every year. So why are they playing them in the tournament? Just really disappointed in this draw. Really disappointed, because that means it's going to be a hard first month. They're playing nobody but one game against Louisville will be their total challenge. When we come back, up next here on the Louis Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric, built on faith, family, and community. That's CC Electric. Up next, I got a listen in for you. I'll explain. More details to come. It's the Louis Bellina Show Monday on The Zone.
The Houston Astros play on the zone. Thanks to Kelly Berdozer.
I got a listen in for you. It's part of our prep for the college football season 2026. It's something we do all summer long. It's something we've been doing all spring long. Greg McElroy, Always College Football Podcast. He's been doing these top 10 countdowns, and it's something that was all the vogue. It's what everybody did all off season long. And then everybody stopped doing top 10s and they started doing tier lists and on and on. It's been an evolution of things. And McElroy has brought the top 10 back, and it's been phenomenal. He did by position. This is something that's cooler. This is something fun. And he has the top 10 what ifs for the upcoming college football season.
What if number 1? What if the SEC opens the season and gets punched in the mouth on national television over and over and over and over again, all over the course of about 8 days? Picture this just for a moment. Might be hard to envision, but just picture it if you will. Clemson walks into Death Valley and beats LSU in Lane Kiffin's debut on September 5th. Baylor then takes down Auburn in Atlanta on the same night. The next night, Louisville knocks off Ole Miss to open up the Pete Golding regular season era. And then the Saturday after that, Michigan knocks off Oklahoma in Ann Arbor. Georgia Tech drops Tennessee in Atlanta. And Ohio State walks into Austin and beats Texas there in the second week of the season. That's not a bad weekend. That is a referendum, right? Because for a number of years, the SEC and the argument that surrounds the SEC has been built on one phrase. We are deeper than you. That's been the argument from the SEC. And then you now have a new 9-game conference schedule that was supposed to be the proof that there were going to be more landmines, more bodies, more strength of schedule. But strength of schedule cuts both ways, right? If you lose those non-conference games, you don't get to play the depth card in November. You get to play defense in a committee room. And here's what the tape says kind of walking in. Well, LSU is breaking in a new quarterback that's coming off a Liz Frank injury against a Clemson team that has spent the entire offseason trying to figure out a way to get back in the good graces of the college football court of public opinion. You got Tennessee starting a first-time quarterback, a rookie, if you will, on the road in a hostile building, and it's inexperienced quarterback on the road for the first time, a loud away stadium. It's a really tough thing to overcome. That is a bloodbath scenario, right? And if it hits, the SEC does not just lose games. It loses the narrative that has spent, 2 decades building. Now, the conference will still get teams in, but the head and shoulders, we're deeper than everybody else, that becomes a punchline. And it also becomes a very hotly debated topic when we're looking at the at-large teams in December. When we're looking at those teams that, hey, should they get in? Well, if the SEC doesn't take care of business in the non-conference, it's going to be a lot harder to make a case on their behalf. That is for sure. It will get really loud really quickly in college football if the SEC has a bad first 2 weeks of the season. What if number 2? What if 3 programs hire a coach, let him bring his old roster with him, and all of them hit at once? Because that's the bet that Penn State, Oklahoma State, and UCLA, and frankly Auburn, they're all making. And guess what that is? It's the Curt Cignetti model. You do not rebuild. You move in with the furniture that you've already assembled at the previous place. Like Penn State fired James Franklin, and they hired Matt Campbell out of Iowa State. And Campbell didn't show up alone. He brought 20 players off that Iowa State roster with him, headlined by his quarterback, Rocco Becht, and then stacked a top 6 transfer class on top of it. Look at Oklahoma State, who's got to replace a legend in Mike Gundy. They go and they get Eric Morris from North Texas. Morris brought the whole band with him. Brings quarterback Drew Mestemaker. Brings running back Caleb Hawkins, Wyatt Young, the wide receiver. The whole North Texas offense that led the country in scoring just basically went up north a little ways from Denton to Stillwater. And then UCLA, they fired Deshaun Foster. They hired Bob Chesney. And here's the part that makes me laugh. I mean, Chesney is the man who literally replaced Cignetti at James Madison and took the Dukes right back to a bowl and back into becoming a winning machine. Went to the playoff last year. And he is essentially following, he is Curt Cignetti in many ways based on what he's accomplished up to this point. And here he is showing up at UCLA with one of the bigger transfer classes in the country. So the experiment is not subtle. I mean, you have 4 programs, if you include Auburn, 4 imported rosters, and 1 very consistent philosophy. If all of these programs win more than expected and stay really competitive in the games they lose, then we're not looking at coaching hires like this anymore. We're looking at a blueprint. So the tape on Rocco Becht, for example, at Penn State already shows a quarterback who knows exactly where to go with the football because he has run this offense for years. I mean, that's the whole point. Continuity is the cheat code. And all 3 of these schools bought it wholesale, right? If it works 3 times in one fall or 4 times in one fall, then every athletic director in America will stop asking, well, who's the best coach available? They'll start asking, well, who's the best coach available that can also bring along a really talented roster with him? And that changes how the sport hires from this point moving forward. Let's go next to what if number 3. What if the defending national champion Indiana Hoosiers lose 3 games? Is that a indicator that the first 2 years were an outlier, or is that just the cost of doing business? Now, I got to be honest with y'all, because we said on this show, but we're not ready to write off an Indiana repeat. Not close. So let me argue against myself for a moment, because that is what this format's all about. Here's the case for the fall. Indiana did not lose a player off that championship roster. They lost a lot of really important pieces off that championship roster. Losing Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner, goes number 1 overall. He's out of here. The nucleus that made that defense one of the best defenses in the country was gutted in many areas. So what does Cignetti do? He goes and does what Cignetti does. He goes back to the portal, brings in Josh Hooper from TCU. The guy threw for over 3,500 yards last year. He also threw a bunch of picks, which his old coach made a point of mentioning while he was on the move. So that is a little bit of tension, right? But we know that Hoover can fill the stat sheet. We know that. But this is a little bit new. We also know it's a little bit new on defense, too. And there's a quarterback that has thrown some picks in the past. And the schedule does get much tougher this season. You got SC, you got Ohio State. So picture 3 losses. What does that mean? It means nothing about Curt Cignetti to me. It means everything about everybody else. If a team that turned over its entire roster still wins 9 or 10 games and maybe loses 2 or 3, that's not a collapse. That's the new physics of college football with a championship-sized target on their back. So the fluke take is lazy to me. You don't go 16-0 by accident. But a 3-loss Indiana would prove the thing that nobody really wants to admit, that in this era, winning it all and then reloading from scratch may be the hardest thing to pull off in the sport, even for a guy in Curt Cignetti that has continued to pull it off and over and over and over again. I still think they're going to be really good. I just think there's a big difference between really, really good and the national champion. That's a gap that is kind of like a canyon. Doesn't mean they can't still do it. It just means that there's a lot to learn between now and them reaching that milestone yet again. What if number 4? What if Notre Dame wins the whole thing for the program's first national championship since 1988? I was born in 88. I'm 38 years old. That is a drought, ladies and gentlemen. My whole life, I've never seen the Fighting Irish win a national championship. So that's longer than a lot of our audience, knowing that I know who listens to our show. I know who watches our show. A lot of our audience wasn't born the last time Notre Dame won the national championship. And it's become a very heavy sentence in college football that Notre Dame, arguably the most storied program in college football, without a modern day title. But it does feel like 2026 is different, right? And the excitement, the enthusiasm, it feels different. It really does. And for the first time in the modern era, the Irish are among the preseason national championship favorites. It's not a feel-good story. This is Vegas, all right? This is the actual favorites, right? Big reason why is the quarterback. I mean, CJ Carr is back for year number 2 as starting quarterback. Last year, he was incredible. Had 24 touchdowns against just 6 interceptions, was top 5 in terms of efficiency. And the thing that jumps out when you watch him is the decision-making. He can protect the football like a veteran, but he also knows how to fit in the tight windows. Like, he knows what he can do. And that's a rare trait for a young quarterback. And if you look at the sports books, like, they all agree. I mean, Carr opened up as plus 750 favorite to win the Heisman, which tells you the market is treating him like a top 3 player in America before he's even thrown a pass in this upcoming season. So here's what a Notre Dame title would mean. It would not just end a drought, but it would validate the independent model in the playoff era, the idea that you can bypass a conference championship, build a national schedule, and still cut to the front of the line. It would show that when Marcus Freeman told his team to kind of keep the pain and feel the pain and don't waste the failure after getting left out of the field last year, well, that's the whole 2026 story. Miami comes to South Bend in November for what might be a top-tier rematch. And that's the game that could either build the resume or maybe burn the whole thing down. But if Carr takes that year 2 leap and the Irish do go on and win it, well, college football gets its loudest possible ending. That the sleeping giant finally wakes up in the exact era that everyone said the Giants were supposed to be dead. And then one more thing, too, it further validates that the place, look, coaches are so important. There's very little in the sport that is more meaningful or more important than having a top flight coach. But sometimes the place is bigger than the coach in some cases. Because when Brian Kelly left, he cited, well, can't win another. I got a better chance of winning a national championship at LSU than I do at Notre Dame. But many, by the way, modern era would tell you that that's accurate. That is not untrue. LSU has won a title with Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron. 3 different coaches have national championships for the Tigers since 2003. So it's not untrue, but sometimes that's exactly what you need to kind of jumpstart the engine of what the Irish have done since. And the response has been phenomenal. And Marcus Freeman was the exact guy to take over, to take Notre Dame to the next level. What if number 5? What if USC misses 9 wins again in year 5 of Lincoln Riley? Now, the number is the story here because Vegas set the USC win total at 8.5, with the books leaning towards the under right now. So read that line carefully. The odds makers are not predicting a disaster. They're predicting another almost. Because what Lincoln Riley has been at SC is a coach whose offense can score. We know that. And a team that has maybe struggled at times to play really well on the road. I mean, last year, the Trojans went 9-4. And every one of their regular season losses came away from the Coliseum. And that's not necessarily a talent problem. It's just, why does this show not travel the same way it does when they play at home? And the same situations do occasionally pop up. Now, the schedule is going to be tough. I mean, Oregon, Ohio State, and Washington, they all come to LA, which sounds great until you see the road slate because you're going to Penn State, Indiana, Wisconsin. Those are difficult road trips. And the staff up to this point maybe hasn't totally solved some of those road trips. So the October 10th trip to Penn State might be a whiteout, might tell us the whole season in one night. So what does an under 8.5 season actually mean? It means that the conversation in LA stops being about the playoffs and starts being about, oh, is this really the right guy for us? Because I think Lincoln Riley's a good coach. A lot of people don't love Lincoln Riley. I think he's a really good coach. But I do think this is the first time where it feels like the roster is poised to make that run. partly because of their quarterback. Jay Mayav is amazing. He's back at quarterback. The recruiting has really turned toward keeping local talent at home. The roster feels like it's ready to win right now. So what would be missing? What would be missing? You can survive a rebuild, and I do think they had to rebuild this thing, right? But you cannot survive 5 seasons of, well, the talent's there, just the wins haven't really materialized just yet. So if SC finishes 8-4 or worse, then year 6 is going to be a very important year for Lincoln Riley and company there in Los Angeles.
That is part 1 of our Listen In, Greg McElroy's What If for college football 2026. And again, we listen to a lot of his stuff here. It's as part of being an ESPN affiliate. We're allowed to. And again, I love him because he still talks ball. How much of this is the whole look at me garbage that's out there? He talks ball. And it's been awesome starting in the spring into the summer. His top 10. Again, everyone used to do them that everyone stopped. He's bringing it back, I feel like. This is the Louis Bellina Show. And when we return, the ticket booth is going to open thanks to Dixie Tire Company.
For the complete contest and prize rules for 1150 AM and 93.7 FM, visit zone1150.com.
Come get it.